Lori Fleckett, and I'm here today on Focus Forward with a very good friend of mine and associate, Wendy Burruel. And we are here today to talk about women in technology and what women can do to get ahead in a male-dominated industry. So, Wendy, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be
here. So tell us a little about you.
So I have an undergrad and a graduate degree in psychology, and I've worked in Silicon Valley for about 18 years. And the number one question that I always get asked is, really, how does that work, having a bachelor's and master's in psychology and then working in Silicon Valley? And the question that people usually ask me is, aren't you upset that you're not using your degree, that you don't get the chance to use your degree? And the answer to that is always, I use it every day. And so I found that I've been able to use that degree in order to foster relationships and help build teams and maximize processes. And really what I've been really super passionate about is to try to help women succeed in Silicon Valley, because I know myself, I've been in meetings where there's 20 men in the room and I'm the only woman. And so there's some dynamics that are different in working in a male-dominated industry. And so I'm really interested in helping women foster that environment to their benefit.
So it's 20-1. I don't really understand how that happens, considering that women make up 52% of the population. So we have the larger percentage of the population is not in the higher echelons of the company, or they're not in those companies at all.
They're really not in technical roles is what's happening. So we're seeing it actually at a really young age, which is really kind of discerning that there's girls that are not going into science and math kinds of fields. They're not interested in those kinds of things when they're younger. And so there's actually programs out today, which is really great, to try to help foster that in young girls, to get them excited about computers. In our society, we tend to focus boys more on computers and gaming and things, and less with girls. We try to force them into dolls and things that are not science and engineering related. And so they end up interested in things that are generally more female dominated. And so there's less and less girls that are growing up and going to college and seeking degrees in science and math. And so they end up naturally being less in the technical field. But those in the technical field, I find, also have a hurdle to try to get over in terms of trying to get promoted in that technical field once they're there. So there are women in business, that whole 52% that you're talking about. There are a lot of women in business, that's for sure. What ends up happening, though, is a lot of those women end up being in human resources or program management. They end up not being in a truly technical role. And so I'm interested in helping women everywhere, of course, but specifically the technical women, trying to help them foster their careers.
Okay, so when we look at that makes a lot of sense. So women generally have been told as little kids that the aptitude for math and science for them isn't there. Mm-hmm. So from a psychology standpoint, is that not true? Or is it that they're being kind of steered or conditioned to believe that that's true?
Oh, it's absolutely not true that they don't have the aptitude. Women have just as much aptitude as men do, and they're performing just as well, if not in some cases better than their male counterparts. And so I think it's important to foster that in young girls. When a young girl is playing with the computer or is excited about the internet, it's important for parents to foster that and for them to encourage her to figure out, how does it work? Where I think that boys are more geared in our society, we encourage that. We encourage them to take things apart and build things. And for girls, we encourage them to do things just society-wide that is more female-dominated. And so encouraging your daughters to be interested in technology things is a great thing. If they're interested, by all means, foster that. I mean, don't push them to do something that they're not interested in, but encourage them to be interested in math and science, for sure.
Okay, so that's really great advice. So now the women that are already there, mm-hmm. Here you have a woman. She's in a room with 20 men. I personally wouldn't want to say anything in that group. So do they find that one of the issues is they're feeling uncomfortable in those groups? Maybe they have the information, the aptitude. They're obviously in some type of a leadership role to be in these groups. What happens?
I think that women tend to just work different. We're wired differently than men, and so we have to remember that when we walk into a room. If I were to walk into a room with you, it's likely that I would pull your chair out for you and say, hey, come sit next to me. When you do that in a room with 20 men, you immediately put yourself in an inferior situation so that you're saying you're better than me. It's a subconscious thing that we wouldn't even think about, but you have to be aware of these kinds of things when you're in a room with 20 men. Another thing that I've heard over and over happens in that same situation when a woman is in a room of 20 men, immediately 19 of the people in the room turn and they look and they say, you're going to take notes to the woman in the room. Which is absolutely the wrong answer. And so what I have been encouraging women to do in my time in Silicon Valley is to rotate that schedule so that everybody gets a turn to scribe. So there's not one person that is by default the lowest ring on the totem pole, for example. So it's a shared responsibility then, so that everybody is equal, so that when the woman in the room has her turn to take notes, it's not that she's the scribe. It's not that she's the go-to for notes. It's that it's her turn to scribe. So it's a very different dynamic that way. So it's about shifting the dynamic and the power in the room.
Well, to me, it also seems like it's better to have more than one woman in those meetings.
Sometimes you can't control that, though. I mean, you want the right people in the room. And in that example, having 20 people in one meeting is probably not an effective meeting anyway, right? So I'm not advocating putting more women in just to put women in. I'm advocating the right people to be in the room, but I'm also trying to teach women, if you find yourself in that situation, how do you empower yourself? And how do you put yourself more in a power situation, and what things may you be doing, like pulling your chair out, that you might not be thinking of as putting yourself in a lower power situation. These are all subconscious things, and this is where the psychology of it comes into play, that it's something that you wouldn't even think of, but it's viewed as negative by those in the room.
So what things should we do when we find ourselves in a situation like that?
Command a presence of power, for sure. Be on time. Make sure that you're representing yourself well. Ask questions, engage in the conversation. I've noticed a lot of women in that particular situation will shut down or shy away. They won't want to engage as much. They'll feel like their opinion is not as valuable. I had a really great conversation the other day where we were discussing if a woman sees a job posting and has 9 of the 10 skills, for example, she won't apply for that job because she'll say, I don't have that one thing that they're looking for. Where if a man sees that same posting and he has 5 of the 10 things, he'll submit his application because he feels like, I have 5 of the 10 and I can probably get another 3 by learning these things, or maybe people can teach me these things. So maybe I'll have 8 of the 10, which will make me a good candidate. The woman tends to see the negative view of what she doesn't have. And so what I've been working on doing in my career is empowering women to see, don't you see, you have 9 of 10, which is amazing. Not many people have 9 of 10.
So you think part of the problem, I'm getting that you're saying part of the problem is women aren't throwing their hat in the ring as often as men.
Correct.
Is that right?
They're not. They are not throwing their hat in the ring as often as men. There have been recent studies at Silicon Valley companies where they have asked women and men to nominate themselves for promotion, and it's been found that women don't nominate themselves. And so another thing that women really need to do that I encourage them to do is to find somebody that you can have a mentor and encourage that person to show you the road to strengthen your career, what things you need to do, how do you fortify your career, but also find somebody that can help tell you what you're really good at. Because I find that women don't know what they're really good at. And they're really hard on themselves. And so if you get somebody to sit down with you and say, what do you think I do really well? And then flip roles with them and have them tell you, especially so if you're working together, you probably have seen each other interact and seeing successes. And And so I do exercises with women to try to help them figure out what they do really well so that they see that they are successful. Because then going into that situation where you're in a room with 20 men and you're the only woman in that room, you feel more powerful because you feel more successful. And so it's really embracing something that is already there. It's just not top of mind for women for some reason. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it's just not something that we come to the table with.
Well, do you think that they're afraid of the additional responsibility?
That definitely could be. There's a growing trend of women being in more leadership roles, and then at some point trying to figure out, do I have a family? Do I not have a family?
Yeah.
Do I delay having a family so that my career takes a front seat? And so there's definitely that perception that if you have a child or children, if you have a complete family life, that you can't have a complete career life. And I've found that not to be the case with the women that I've worked with, that you definitely can have that complete career and home life and happy family life. It's just about figuring out how to balance it in a way that works for you.
Yeah, well, that's really, that's the tough part. But when we look at it, if we have the strategies in place and help at work and help at home, we can bring that together. One of the things that I find when I work with women, corporate women, that I help them do is I help them write a career highlights that goes all the way back and talks about exactly what successes they've had.
Correct.
Throughout their life. And that does, I mean, you can physically see that person become more powerful, become more secure, and stronger. The other thing is to really own up to the successes that they've had at their positions in their companies. What have they really spearheaded? What have they done? Because women have a tendency to be inclusive. It's like a group effort where usually a man will say, I was the one who did this, even if it was him and 50 of his coworkers.
Correct.
You know, so women need to really own up to their part of it.
Correct.
And the other thing that I've noticed is another issue is they tend to also will go back to the people that work for them, and they'll make more democratic decisions. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that is viewed as she's insecure.
It can be, definitely.
Not she's inclusive.
Correct.
And getting the whole team together.
She's not confident in making a decision
not
for herself.
Not confident in
Correct.
making the decision. So how does one go about using that natural innate ability and the way that we look at things and still emulate power or emit that power that we ourselves need to move into those roles?
Well, as you were talking, I was actually thinking that a lot of women are so head down in their jobs that they don't look up. And that's another thing that I encourage women to do, is that men are really good at fostering their careers. They're always, generally speaking, they're always looking at the next stage, the next thing that they need to do, the next book that they need to read, the next person that they need to connect with. They're networking much more. They're trying to figure out, how do I get to the next thing that I want to achieve in my career? If you ask women, what are the next thing that you want to achieve in your career? A lot of times they won't know what the next thing that they want to achieve in their career is. And if they do, if you ask them what they're doing to get there, you'll find that they're not doing the things that they need to do to get there, or they don't know what those things are. And so I think that through some exercises and workshops, I've been able to guide women into, here's what it is that you enjoy doing about your career. These are the things that you should be asking your boss to give you more of so that you're getting joy out of the job that you're doing. And fostering that relationship with other people in the workforce so that you are a complete unit, and harnessing your power so that you are confident in the decisions that you're making and just more well-balanced. I find that when you have more joy in what you're doing, it affects, it's like a ripple effect. It affects those around you as well. So
this is great information. I feel that we've touched on this, the problem that people are facing, or the challenge that people are facing, about the differences in the communication styles and the gender differences. What do you uniquely do in a corporation to help smooth this out, to maybe pave the way? What do you do and how do you go about doing it?
Well, I've been in Silicon Valley for 18 years now, and with that psychology degree in the background, I've been picking up tools along the way. And so I've learned through experience what things work well with teams, what things don't work well. I've seen mistakes that women make, like pulling a chair out for somebody, like baking cookies for a team of men, that people don't think of as actually being detrimental to their career. And so what I do is I have picked up all of this information that is in my toolbox of things, and then I'm able now to go to help corporations build training programs, communication seminars, do seminars to help women forward their career, help them find out what their power is. What is it that they're really good at? They may not even know what they're really good at. They may not know what they're passionate about. A lot of women, if you ask them what is their passion, they're like a deer in the headlights. Because what they know is, I have this career where I work at this big corporation and I'm a program manager. And I show up every day to try to make this program work. And success for me is when that program is successful. Whereas a man will look at it as, I'm a program manager in a really big company and I need this program to be successful so that I can use that as a stepping stool to get to the next level, to get to the next company, to get to the next level so that they go from program manager to director of program management. They're aware of how they're stepping forward in their career. I think women sometimes, a lot of times, because we're taking care of so many other people, we have families, we may be taking care of parents, that we shelter ourselves in just looking at what is it that I need to do today in order to get through today to be successful today. And so what I help women do is pick their head up and look forward. So it's wonderful that I'm on Focus Forward today.
Yes, it's great that you're here. So what I find is really interesting about what you're saying is, if a friend came to that woman and said, help me, what should I do? They would figure it out like that.
Correct.
So they'd be able to tell this person, you would be really suited for this kind of position, maybe you should think of that. So in looking at it, what should women do? What could they do right now to help them understand how to position themselves better? So what could they do?
I think it all starts with, what do you really enjoy doing? Because if you don't have passion around what it is that you're doing, then you're probably not doing the right thing. There is some magic in the do what you love and the money will follow. There is some magic there for sure. So I think what women should do is, really, this is one of the things that I teach women when I work with them, is to just sit down and write a list of things, 20 things that bring you joy. And it can be anything. For me, the number one thing is walking on the beach and putting my toes in the sand. So the sky is the limit. Now, I don't necessarily get paid to walk on the beach and put my toes in the sand, although I wish—
That's too bad. It sounds like a great job.
I wish that I did. But what you'll find is on that list of things that bring you joy, for me, is problem solving and is coaching. And so there's things in that list, public speaking, for example. So there's things in that list that I really love to do that if I didn't get to do, I find that I'm not as happy. And so when you look at that list, you see the things that are translatable to your job. So then the second step is to look at the job that you're doing today and figure out, what are the things on that list that are in my current job? And is that job really giving me joy? And if it's not, that's okay. Figure out, are there things on the list that you can ask your boss to give you? Are there special projects that you can take on that maybe you can stay in your current position but stretch yourself? Do you know what your next career move is going to be? Start thinking about that. And does that next career move include those things that make you happy?
Wow, that sounds great. Okay, so say they've done that, okay, and they're starting to incorporate more things into their life that bring them joy and bring them happiness. What's the next step?
They really need to partner with somebody that's going to help them succeed. So women are really great at fostering somebody else's career and forward movement. So I will happily tell everybody about how great you are. And what will not happen is I will not tell people how great I am. It's just it's a human characteristic with women that just tends to be pervasive, where we tend to downplay our own skills, but we're happy to forward somebody else's success, be it a woman or a man. We're happy to say, oh, Lori, she's so great. Here's all the things that she does well. Do you know she's an author? She's a great public speaker. She's amazing at all of these things. She does social marketing, and I can keep going. Here's all the great things that are great about Lori. But when you ask me, when you those are all true, by the way. When you ask what's great about me, what you're going to find is, naturally, I'm going to stumble and I'm going to say, well, let me think about it. You have this natural pause and you don't really accelerate it. So what is really important is for you to work with somebody that can tell you what you're really great at, because they'll tell you a lot of things that probably aren't even top of mind for you. So the exercise that you mentioned is really great. I happen to love that one, where you go back into your childhood and you say, I sold the most Girl Scout cookies. I won the Student of the Week. It's even things way back in your childhood. So you see this long list of accomplishments. That's a great exercise, but also having somebody else tell you what you do really well, so that you have this list of things that wow, I do these things really well, so that you have them. And then the next step for that is to distill that information into an elevator pitch, right? So then you have 30 seconds of things that you do really well, so that you on your own could take what I just said about you, and then you have it. So that when somebody says, Lori, why do you deserve a promotion? You can say, well, I'm a best-selling author. I know a lot about social media. I do all of these things that are related to this particular position, and I think I'm the best candidate for the job.
Wow, that would be very powerful.
It's hugely powerful.
So we've gone from not even throwing their hat in the ring to actually being able, in an elevator pitch, to be able to say exactly why we're the candidate for the job. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah, very
And we
succinctly.
probably have to be ready with that at any given moment.
Any given moment.
Because you never know when that's going to come up. So I have a question about that kind of deflection. Do you think that we learn that deflection from our environment, or do you think we are naturally like that, biologically or psychologically?
I think it's probably a little mix of both. But I do think that there's something culturally, specifically in the States, where women are encouraged to not be boastful, right? And so we are not proud, we're not boastful, we're not engaged.
Because nobody likes girls like that.
Because nobody likes a bragger. So don't brag, because it's not nice for you to brag, but it's actually a detriment in your technical career, because you may be on par with the men around you, but you're not bragging enough about the great things that you do, or having somebody brag for you, right? So you're not establishing a relationship with somebody who will say, do you know Lori does all these really great things? And so the word gets around about how great you are. So it's about making relationships, understanding what you do well, and networking with people.
See, that's one of the things that I do with my clients, is I help them to understand how to create an army. And then that army, then we send the message through the army. And we have a whole group of people out there saying great things about them. And that way, we're able to touch many different circles in a positive way. So if a woman did that in the company, there were a group of people that got together and they decided they were going to work on their well, come into a course with you.
Correct.
I mean, it's perfect. Then they all have this information, and then they take that out. I mean, that seems like that would be phenomenal. So in looking at it, tell us a little bit more about your program. Tell us about maybe like the results that you've had when you've instituted these things in Yahoo. What have you seen?
I've seen that women are really able to see the success that they have, their core skills, talents, and abilities. They are more confident. They are able to go about their job and not only enjoy what they're doing in the moment, but really have their sights forward on where is it that they're going and how to get there. So I think that's key, is that I really turn them from this like head down, I'm here to do a job, into focusing forward and getting getting to where they really think that they should be in their career. It's all of these things that seem like they're just common knowledge, but it's just stuff that women just don't do. Fostering relationships with a mentor is a really great thing to do. If you ask a lot of women, who's your mentor, if they answer at all, then the next question is, when was the last time that you met with your mentor? And I get the silence or the, right? So where men are really more engaged in that kind of activity.
So before we finish, because we're going to have to wrap up soon, I just want to talk a little bit about, this is where Wendy and I met, was at a retreat at Jack Canfield's in Maui, and we were working on the success principles, which was really interesting because what we were able to do was to do a lot of the things that you had just talked about.
Correct.
To understand what it is that brings us joy, what we're really good at. So what about, diving in and going to retreats and going to conferences and things like that? How do you feel about that?
Absolutely a requirement. Self-development, continued self-growth, absolutely required. I feel like that's one way to get out of the stuckness, the stagmire that people get stuck into their day-to-day job. Of course, I love the stuff that we did with Jack Canfield. I incorporate some of his things into my work as well. And it's a fabulous way. These ongoing seminars for self-development are key in order to understand what you do really well, and then harness that power to speak well about what it is that you do really well. But also for technical women, attend the technical conferences. There's a ton of technical conferences that are available. Make sure that you're looking and finding out where they are close to you, and making sure that you're partnering with your manager to figure out how to get you there. And if you're at a level where you can speak at those conferences, speak at those conferences.
Throw your hat in the ring.
Throw your hat in the ring.
Well, Wendy, thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you for having me. It's been
well,
great.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're going to have to come back on and talk a little bit more about this.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many more questions that I have. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful. And, our relationship is just getting better and better. We're learning from each other. We're growing with each other's help. And I think what we're going to be able to do is to be able to help get us both to the next level.
Absolutely.
And that's really the key. So thank you so much for joining us today on Focus Forward, and I hope you have a great day, and please tune in again. Thanks a lot, Wendy.
Hey, this is Robert Dempsey with your Tips from the Net. And today I want to tell you about a little survey that I read about improving the in-store customer experience for web-enabled customers. And really all that fanciness means is that people are walking into retail stores with their mobile phones, which obviously have the internet on them, and so they are really changing their buying behavior. Now, the question is someone shopping on an online store or a brick and mortar, right? Or are they doing both? So for instance, for me, I have been known to walk into a bookstore, peruse the books, and then actually buy that book on Amazon for my Kindle, or actually order it off Amazon. And the store that I went into was obviously not Amazon because they don't have stores. Now, Retail Systems Research did a survey talking to retailers about cross-channel activities, which basically means online, offline, etc. And what they found was that 65% of people surveyed would buy online and return it in-store. 58 bought in-store and then fulfilled through online or direct, so they could get it sent directly to their house. And 42% were buying via a mobile device, and 21% actually bought via a social commerce site, so some like Daily Deal kind of website or what have you. So interesting thing though, if you are a retailer, the big lesson here is that your customers want to be able to walk into a store, buy your product, whether it's right there in the store or online. They want to be able to buy it, get it shipped to their house, or any combination of any of these factors. So keep that in mind if you have a store. You really got to cater to the way that people are buying nowadays, and this is it. So I am Robert Dempsey. This is your Tips from the Net for the week. I will see you next time.